Thanks very much, Chrissy. So we're here to talk about Bannerman leading the energy charge. When many people think of energy charge, you're probably thinking electric vehicles, you're probably thinking renewables. Well, you probably also know that recent events have led the entire planet to rethink energy. And it's rethinking energy in favour, in a significant way, of nuclear power. And that's where being positioned as we are in the uranium sector is a tremendous advantage to us, but it's also a fantastic opportunity for investors. So, a couple of quick words about Bannerman. We changed our approach about a year ago to focus on the fact that we are an energy company, and that is our mission, and we live and breathe that concept of being social leaders in the supply of raw materials to emissions-free energy. Now, how do we achieve that at a nuts and bolts level? First of all, we're about a $300 million company at the moment. Of that, about 50 million is cash. So we have a very strong balance sheet, and that's enough to see us all the way through from our advanced asset position at the moment to final investment decision at our Namibian Etango uranium project. We're debt-free, very strong board. I'd like to tell you a bit more about that later. So the world is looking at nuclear energy in a different way. It's looking at it through a different lens. And that is, in fact, the new way that the world is thinking about nuclear. It's no longer about cooling towers. It's no longer about large gigawatt scale. They are there to provide a very large scale baseload demand for uranium, but the future is changing, including the way that people are thinking about the transition of energy to the future. Now, the thing is, and what the world has learnt brutally in the last 6 months, is the future of energy must, and I mean must, have 4 minimum characteristics. The first one is energy must be secure, as Europe has found out the very hard way. It must be reliable, as large swathes of the world are finding out as they learn that the firming that they've been promised with renewable energy is harder, slower and more expensive than they thought. It must overall be affordable. And finally, what we were talking about at number 1 only a year ago, it must be clean, or else. And the or else, we are, in my opinion, only at the very, very, very start of understanding what the or else can mean for governments that get this wrong. And Europe is just one example. There is an enormous amount of pain that will happen to economies, to lifestyles, to humans, for governments that fail in achieving all 4 of these characteristics. So let's look at it. Energy security. We knew all this from the 70s. Now, most of you in this audience would remember this, and we're learning it again. And the whole world is learning it. It's not just Europe. The rest of the world, particularly China, is going, well, we don't want that, do we? And nuclear power is one of the primary beneficiaries of the tragic events that we are seeing in Ukraine at the moment. In terms of reliable energy, a number of factors are testing the resilience and reliability of grids in the face of greater penetration by renewable energy. And going forward, if you combine all the clean requirement with the reliability baseload requirement, you're only 2 options are hydro, if you're lucky enough to have the presence of those systems in an environmentally acceptable way, or nuclear power. Then if you look at affordability, so we were taking electricity in the developed world at least for granted until this year. But it goes a lot further than that. It is a basic human right to be able to put a washing machine in your hut in Africa. And we sit there in our very comfortable existence in Australia, in the first world, or in Brussels, or in Tokyo, or wherever these decisions are being made, and we fail to understand that we will not get the developing world on board with our climate mitigation goals unless they can, at the very least, put a washing machine in their hut so they don't have to go to the swamp to wash their clothes. Forget about TVs and all of the rest of that. If we don't get this bit right, we are finished when it comes to mitigating climate change. And I wish all of the people sitting in their comfortable offices in Brussels making serious policy decisions about these energy matters would understand this. And finally, we know this. This is what we were talking about a long time ago. And then COP26 was a watershed moment, in particular for nuclear power and for the policymakers who make the big decisions about how to allocate their energy assets. So what does this all mean? Well, we don't really understand what's happening in nuclear power sitting in Australia because, we don't have it. There's a law against it. Most of our media is still anti-nuclear to one extent or another. But some of the most recognisable faces on our planet have come around in a very substantial way towards nuclear power. Bill Gates, who's regarded as one of the better thinkers alive today, is a very staunch proponent of nuclear power. Elon Musk, who defined an entire generation's thinking about green, EVs, renewables, is a strong proponent of nuclear power. And the next phase will probably give you a big surprise if you haven't been following the news in the last week. Even Greta Thunberg has come across to understand that nuclear power is essential if we are going to tackle climate mitigation challenges. This is profound. This is affecting generations of public opinion around the world. And the net result of that is that we're going to need an awful lot more uranium. What we're looking at here is World Nuclear Association's upper scenario from their 2021 nuclear fuel report. We've got the uppercase demand there. This is existing supply, both secondary and primary. Here's a bunch of development projects, including Bannerman's Etango project. And then that represents uranium that needs to be found, made viable and developed in that time period. So the world needs an awful lot more uranium. And I'm very familiar with those numbers because I was the chair of the demand committee that put these forecasts together out to 2040. And that's why I believe, not WNA, but I believe we should be following the uppercase scenario because of some tremendous moves forward in uranium demand in recent months. So what does that mean for Bannerman and Etango? Well, we've been at it for 15 years in Namibia, and we're really coming into a prime position to launch our project into a buoyant uranium market. And if you were to take three things away from this presentation and our company and what I've got to say, Namibia is the perfect place to develop a uranium asset. Etango is exactly the right ore body to deliver into the tension that we're going to see in the coming years in uranium. And we very much have the team who can deliver this type of asset into that opportunity. So I'll only say a couple of things about Namibia. Most people recognise it when you think of uranium. It's been exporting uranium for 45 years. It's the third largest uranium exporter in the world, and that counts for an awful lot in a socially, environmentally and politically sensitive commodity like uranium. And we just happen to be blessed to be close to infrastructure, close to existing mining operations, close to a deep water port that is exported for 45 years and close to nearby towns. Now, in terms of the ore body, first of all, it's strategic. It is enormous. It's 208 million pounds, plus it's open at depth, plus we have a satellite deposit that's substantial, that's JORC 2004, so we don't add that to the number. We've recently scaled down our operation to get into production sooner at a more manageable capex, but still at 3.5 million pounds, that's enough to service between 6 and 7, maybe even 8 gigawatts of nuclear power. So we are to become a big player in this industry. And we believe that we will be able to expand beyond both the 3.5 million pounds and also the 15-year mine life that we've considered at this point. In terms of our team, first of all, we've got a committed, long-standing and extremely capable board. Most of those names have been with the company a long time, notably Ronnie Beaver, who's our chairman, Mike Leach, who's our chairman in Namibia and an NED on the main board. He was the managing director of the Rossing uranium mine, which is down the road in Namibia, the closest analogue to what we will develop. And also, you might have seen last week that we're actually very proud and rather chuffed to have appointed Alison Terry to our board. If you want a single line external validation of our ESG credentials, well, the executive who led sustainability for a $50 billion company has chosen us as her first board since leaving Fortescue. So I think you've got everything you need to know about our sustainability and ESG credentials right there. Now, in terms of management, we've got deep uranium experience. Chrissy said some very kind things about my background, and also deep Namibian experience. So as well as living there, I've worked with the industry for a long period of time, as you heard. Mike Leach was MD of Rossing Uranium Mine. Werner Ewald, who's our MD in country now, was mining manager there. And we've even got the likes of Norman Green, who built the Husab uranium mine, providing oversight via our technical steering committee on our project. So we've got the people with the skills where it counts. Uranium, Namibia, financing, sustainability. Now, a couple of words about our project. These are PFS outcomes. Now, the thing is, we are highly pregnant with the DFS right now. We're kind of 8.5 months pregnant here, making sure that we've got the ambulance on speed dial right now. But I'll tell you about our PFS outcomes so that you're locked and loaded, ready to benchmark those against the DFS when it comes out shortly. So it's 8 million tonne per annum throughput, and at that £3.5 million per annum that I told you about, over a 15-year mine life, we'll mine and process and deliver 53 million pounds of uranium to start with, within that 208 million pound ore body. Now, we get a very good processing yield for heap leaching with a low strip ratio, and that results in a $39 a pound OPEX. At a PFS capital of $274 million and a uranium price assumption of $65, we're delivering a post-tax NPV of $222 million, payback over 3.5 years, and a healthy 20% IRR. We used $65. I would encourage you to take note of my opening slides and consider formulating your investment on a larger uranium price than that. And that's when you will start to see our leverage really respond very well as you look at the financial sensitivity of higher uranium prices to our project. Notably, it's very low technical risk, and we've de-risked it even further by building a demonstration plant that we've run for several years that you can see there. We have a mining licence application in process right now. It's a conversion from a retention licence, which is a shorter step than from exploration, and we've got the environmental clearances that we need for the project. A whole array of first-rate social programs that position us as a leader within Namibia complements the environmental credentials that we also have. So if I look then at what we're doing going forward and what the investment outlook is for people who choose to join the register. So first of all, we've got the mining licence application. That's now a tick because we've got that in, and the Namibian Ministry of Mines are looking at that. The next one is the Etango DFS that I told you about. We are ready to deliver that this quarter, so by Christmas you'll be able to enjoy that. Front-end engineering and design, as I said at the beginning, we've got a healthy balance sheet with $50 million, and that is enough to equity fund front-end engineering and design. So we don't need to wait until we're financed to start that work and to start detailed engineering. We will progress that with our cash balance. And that means that we can continue in parallel a process that's already commenced with financing and positioning ourselves to write contracts when we think the market is in the right shape to deliver superior shareholder value. And all of that should concertina together for a final investment decision by late 2023. So Chrissy, thanks very much for the introduction, and thanks everyone for coming along and towards the death knell. I'll see you for a beer shortly. Thank you.